away. You're watching Perspective. My guest today is Jennifer Girard, District Manager of Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for joining me today. Can you tell us, Jennifer, what is the Canadian Federation of Independent Business?
I certainly can. The purpose of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, or the CFIB for short, is to promote free enterprise and give independent business owners a stronger voice in the laws and regulations that are affecting their businesses. And Catherine, it all began back in 1969 with a man named John Bullock. John at that point was a business professor at the University of Toronto. He had grown up in a small business family of tailors in Toronto, and he was teaching. And he was the kind of guy who liked to actually receive white papers from Parliament Hill, and he would read them actually in his bathtub.
Oh,
so
okay.
on one particular occasion, he was reading a white paper in the bathtub pertaining to the government's plans to eliminate the small business corporate tax rate. And he realized that that would be the death of small business in Canada. So he wrote a letter denouncing the white paper and addressed it to the finance minister at the time. He then went on to share that letter publicly. And in the furor that erupted afterwards, he was able to rally a group of supporters. And together they were able to stop the white paper from being passed into legislation. So it was quite a significant victory for small business, even going way back to those days.
Wow.
At that point, he realized that the need for a strong voice for small business or independent business forward going would be necessary. And so in 1971, the CFIB was founded.
Excellent. That's quite the story. So I also read in the bathtub, so see what you can learn?
There you go. He marked his papers there, apparently, as well.
You can learn and get clean at the same time.
Who knew? Who knew?
That's a great story. So that was the start of it in 1969.
Yes.
And how did it expand throughout Canada? It started in Toronto.
Yeah, it started in Toronto and into Ontario. So we now have a presence in pretty much every province at this point. So that is where most of our lobbying takes place, is provincially and federally. And so today we continue to advocate to government on behalf of independent businesses. In addition to that, we have a business resources department, group of people who are able to provide information, support, simple answers to simple questions to small business owners. We also offer an array of savings programs to CFIB members, and that is often able to save them a considerable amount of money.
With different vendors or different organizations?
Yes, yes. And I can go into each of those areas in a little more detail with you as we go along.
Sure. Maybe when we come back, I think we have to go to break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us. You're watching Perspective. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McRae. You're watching Perspective with my guest today, Jennifer Girard, District Manager for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Jennifer, before the break, we were talking about the birth of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business and where they started in Toronto, expanded throughout Canada, and some of the advocacy as well as benefits of being a member.
Yes.
What would be some of the organizations, I guess, that would provide benefits if one were a member of the Canadian Federation of Independent Business?
Okay, so there is quite an array. The discounts that are available to our members are on items like banking. So there is a program with Scotiabank, for example. There are also processing discounts through Chase Merchant Services. And there are synergies to be gained among these areas. So for example, members of the CFIB who do business with Scotiabank and with Chase Merchant Services. There is a three-way partnership, you could say. So preferred pricing on processing, preferred pricing
So
on
if you have a
banking.
business where you're running credit cards or point of sale purchase, that type of merchant
Yes.
service you're talking about, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And beyond that, it extends to shipping, an online carrier called ShipTime, payroll service through PayWorks. There are many recent changes to employment standards, and so that can be quite helpful to business owners as a time saver as well. There are business courses that may be taken online. There are over 40 courses available for free, which includes anything from customer service to WMIS training. There are certification programs, including certificates in health and safety, sales and marketing, small business management, human resources,
Very
discounts on
nice.
telephone, internet. So it's the other side of strength in numbers, is being able to leverage the buying power of working together and being able to negotiate. And in situations where a contract would normally be required to be signed, the CFIB will make that commitment so that a business owner doesn't have to, so that they are then free to be able to exit the arrangement if there
wow.
is something better that would happen
Yeah,
to come
very
along.
good. So they can decide for themselves. They're not locked in with any one provider.
Correct.
Very nice.
Correct.
Good. So let's go back to the advocacy of what Canadian Federation of Independent Business. They started off with the gentleman who founded the organization,
Correct.
lobbying the government
Yes.
for the small business tax.
Yes.
What other advocacy areas does the Canadian Federation of Independent Business get into?
Okay. So there's quite a number. Possibly the best way for me to start would be to explain how it works in a general sense, and then to give you a concrete example of something that we're working on currently.
Okay.
So it always starts with getting input from our membership. So when we become aware that something is coming down the pipeline in government that's going to affect independent business owners, we will get that out to the membership. We will let them know what supporters are saying on the issue, or what detractors are saying on the issue, so that they are in a position to be able to make an informed vote. So they cast their vote through the ballot. They include comments they may wish to make to their premier or to their member of parliament. Then we forward that along directly so that those individuals know where that specific business owner is coming from and how they want to be represented.
And then the CFIB goes to bat
You
for
bet.
that business owner and collectively for all the business
Yes.
owners
Yes.
with the government.
Yes. So the aggregate results of the voting are then reported to politicians, bureaucrats, media, anyone in a position to be able to make or influence policy, so that they know where independent business in Canada or in Ontario stand as a whole. And that's a very powerful ammunition.
Oh, most definitely.
It
Yes.
certainly is. I'd be happy to give you some examples of...
We just need to go to break now.
Okay.
We'll be right back. You're watching Perspective. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCrae. You're watching Perspective. My guest is Jennifer Girard, District Manager with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Jennifer, before the break, we were talking about some advocacy.
Yes.
What does the CFIB do, or how would they tie into upcoming elections, whatever work had maybe been done prior with a former government, may all go out in the wash with the new government? What does CFIB do about that?
Okay. So there are a number of things that happen leading up to any sort of election. So number one is to survey the membership to get a sense of what their priorities are for politicians leading into those elections. So we identify that in the form of a report, which we then provide to every political party, along with a questionnaire asking each political party to identify their position on those important issues for independent business. That information is then made publicly available on our website, and it assists our members with making their voting decisions, quite honestly.
So it's made available on the website, whether or not you're a member, you can see
Yes,
the work that the CFIB is doing
That's
to
true.
lobby on behalf of independent business.
you bet, you bet. Every political party now takes the time to respond, and so those answers are posted, of course, there. So it becomes very important prior to the election, but after the election, it is also critically important because then it becomes the accountability piece. These are the commitments that you made in writing, and we are going to see to it that you follow through on them.
And that's where you see whether they flip-flop too on their promises.
You bet, you bet. That is very powerful ammunition, and it has been highly effective for us with this federal government. With this provincial government, we actually started an action alert to be addressed to whoever was elected as premier prior to the election. There are quite a number of concerns from independent business concerning some of the decisions of our previous government. So we wanted to make sure that after the election, those concerns were addressed. And it's quite interesting actually what the number one priority was. Because very often, going into an election, the priorities are total tax burden, red tape would be number two, so it's usually one of those two items. This year leading up to the provincial election, it was the debt. Small business owners are very concerned about the amount of debt in Ontario, which is projected to grow to $360 billion by 2020.
That's more than mine.
Yeah,
That's scary.
It's certainly an unfathomable
Right,
amount
yeah.
of money. And nobody knows better than a small business owner that that kind of spending is simply not sustainable. Sooner or later, someone has to pay for it, and it's going to hit us all in the form of taxes.
Right.
So that is certainly something that we are going to be bringing some recommendations forward for now Premier Ford and his team to address.
And again, with the recommendations, that comes from the voice of business from the members
You bet.
that are polled and provide input back to
Yes.
CFIB.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So along with the debt, our members are also very concerned about recent changes with employment standards. Many of them were hit hard with the increase in minimum wage, and they're concerned about what will happen next. So certainly we want to make sure that where minimum wage is concerned, that politics are taken out of any future decision making.
So anyone can go on the website, cfib.ca.
Yes.
The website, they can see these alerts, they can see former advocacy work and
Yes.
what's going forward and what they're doing now on
Yes.
cfib.ca.
Correct.
Okay, we need to go to break and we'll be right back. You're watching Perspective. Please stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCrae. You're watching Perspective with my guest today, Jennifer Girard, District Manager, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Jennifer, before the break, we talked about the advocacy work and the importance of that
Yes.
for business and small business in communities, lobbying the government on behalf of business. What other resources also would be provided?
Okay, great question. We actually have a business resources department, and they help our members in a variety of ways. So first of all, they arrange for the publication of documents on important topics for independent business owners. Things like employment contracts, the labor standard guide, what to do when the tax auditor arrives.
That's a good one.
Yes, certainly. So those are all archived on our website as well and are available for public consumption.
That's actually a fantastic tool because a lot of new small business owners, they're not experienced or familiar in those areas.
Yes.
And are really, some of them could be flailing around without having the experience guidance
You bet.
of those resources available to them.
You bet. You bet. The other part of what they offer is simple answers to simple questions. So they are literally constantly throughout the day checking their emails, waiting by the telephone for business owners to call them with their concerns, problems, questions.
So it's almost like it's like having a business partner, an experienced business partner in all
Yes.
aspects of business, whether it's taxation, Revenue Canada,
Yes.
employment standards.
Yes.
So that's a partner in business that works in conjunction with you, for you, to find you the resources and answers that you need.
You bet. You bet. And so a great example would be, as you've mentioned, employment standards. So when the new changes came into effect on January 1st this year, there were big changes. And many business owners didn't know how that was going to be impacting their business. And there were nuances for special circumstances.
It's actually a lot to keep track of on your own, too.
It certainly is.
You know, if you're going here and there and trying to find all that information where they can go to one
Yes.
location and it's all there.
Yes, yeah. So
Plus the support over the phone.
You bet, you bet. So call volumes tripled into the Business Resources Department in January. So they were able to provide clarification. They were actually able to bring forward many concerns. So one of the changes that perhaps government hadn't fully anticipated was how much the new calculation for the statutory holidays was going to impact small business owners. There was an example of one business owner who was going to have their stat holiday costs increase by 579%.
Wow.
Huge, huge. So that's a big impact for an independent business owner. We were able to bring that information forward to the provincial finance minister at that point to really highlight the full extent of that damage and ultimately convince them to revert back to the old calculation, at least temporarily. We will certainly be following for this now that we have a new government elected.
So that's
to see what's
ongoing.
going to
They're
happen next.
continuing with this to try and
bet.
change that either back or better.
It has been changed back, effective the Canada Day holiday that has just passed. So that was a small victory, and that's what it boils down to, is the relentless don't give up, don't go away attitude. And
Which is the motto.
You
Motto,
bet.
don't give up, don't go
we
away.
never give up, we never go away.
That's a great motto.
Yes, yeah.
We need to go to break, and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. You're watching Perspective. Welcome back. I'm Katherine G. McCrae. You're watching Perspective with my guest today, Jennifer Girard from Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Jennifer, how did you get involved with the Canadian Federation of Independent Business?
Okay, so I am back into this role after having been away from it for a number of years. I initially got involved because my husband was a sole proprietor. He operated a small grocery store just north of the city, and he had become a member of the CFIB, and at that point he became aware that the CFIB was looking for representation in this area. And so
You had been involved with them previously, before, or just through your husband's business?
Initially, going back all those years ago, I hadn't known anything about the CFIB. But I came to understand what an amazing organization it was. And interestingly enough, I had been working right in this very building for St. John Ambulance. At that time, I was the branch manager. So interesting to be here today. And so I worked for them for 8 years, took a break for a few years, and now I'm back. And it's great to be back.
Excellent. So the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, again, if you'd like to repeat their motto for us, is
Okay, we never give up, we never go away.
never give up and never go away. And so always fighting for the best interest of independent business owners. I know as a business owner myself, it's very difficult to keep keep track of all the changes coming down the pipe, changes that affect your businesses,
Yes.
your own business, regulations that you have to abide by as the regulations change. Because when you're a small business owner, you're so busy
Yes.
in your business, it's
You bet.
very hard to keep track of everything.
You bet.
That's where Canadian Federation of Independent Business comes in.
Exactly, exactly. So it's making business owners aware of issues that are going to have an impact on their business. Things they may not know are coming down the pipe, and giving them an opportunity to be able to do something about it. Because often, Catherine, even if you knew something was going to be impacting your business, you wouldn't have the time or the resources to marshal up to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
Much less to persist year after year until
I'm pretty
finally getting the
persistent though,
result.
but.
True, true.
So the Canadian Federation of Independent Business has many members. Do we have an idea of how many members belong
Yes.
to CFIB?
So in Canada, we are now up to 110,000 businesses who have joined together to raise that unified voice. In the Sioux, we are just around the 600 mark, actually, well, Sioux and area.
Okay.
And that is critically important because it is the strength in numbers that gets us the results and shows politicians the voting impact and the economic impact as well. And really what it boils down to is that we need to get bigger and stronger in order to be able to advance the agenda for independent business.
Okay, and I noticed on your website that the highest concentration is in Ontario. I think it was listing 42,000 members
That's right.
within Ontario. So that's a considerable
Yes.
impact,
It certainly is.
and that's a lot of voices
You bet.
running businesses as well.
Yes, it certainly is.
So we've got an upcoming election, and I imagine there's probably an agenda already with CFIB bringing forward. You had mentioned they bring stuff forward prior to the election.
Yes, yes. So once again, we will be surveying our members to ascertain what is most important to them leading into the federal election. I can certainly let you know that one of the ongoing concerns at this moment is the small business corporate tax rate and some of the changes that have been taking place surrounding that, which are having an impact on many small corporations. And we are still today, after 47 years of existence, fighting to protect that small business corporate tax rate.
Wow. So I want to thank you, Jennifer Girard, District Manager, Canadian Federation of Independent Business. You can check out the website at www.cfib.ca. Till next time, what's your perspective?